Scene 10, take 1.
If I could start a business, I would start a tutoring agency that is more affordable than others.
If I could start a business, it would be a restaurant combining all Asian and Latin foods.
I would probably start a shirt company because I really like shirts.
I would start a film production studio.
I would start a skating company. If I could start a business, it'd be a tattoo shop.
What comes to mind when I hear entrepreneur is a hardworking leader who goes through many obstacles to reach their goal.
What comes to mind when I hear an entrepreneur is a person that is very creative.
I think about people who start businesses. I think of someone hardworking.
I think of someone that has an idea that could possibly change the world.
An entrepreneur that I respect is Elon Musk.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk.
Because, come on, he's in a car to space.
My name is Chris Eliares, aka Cream the Barber, and I'm from San Francisco, California. I chose this location because I grew up here. I grew up right off of 3rd Street, right off of San Bruno Ave in Portola. I used to walk up and down here with my mom when I was a kid. When it came down to searching for a place for me to open up a shop, I saw a space down the street. Next thing you know, I'm sitting at the desk signing papers. Now I got 2 shops in the same neighborhood, so there it is. This is all family, first of all. We are all independent contractors, so we run our own businesses. This is their office, that chair, that station, the mirror, that's their office. We work together for one greater cause, and that's to give the best haircuts in the city of San Francisco. Was it difficult to open my barbershop? Absolutely, 100%. Ain't nothing easy about this. You know, people will tell you, oh, you're just barbers, you're just a barbershop. That's nothing, that's not a real business. Oh, yes it is, yes it is. And it is extremely hard. You know, everything from finding a space to finding a group of wonderful barbers. It's hard to open up a business, let alone a barbershop. There's a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of road bumps along the way, but if executed correctly, you can make a decent living out of it. I would say the biggest sacrifice that I made, the time spent away from my kids. You know, going back to the question, like opening up a barbershop is not easy, you know? You gotta make a lot of sacrifices happen, and one of them was the time that you have to spend away from your kids and your family to make it happen. But it's all for the greater purpose, and that's to provide for them, you know? And if I could change it, I would never do it. Yes, I spent, you know, a good amount of time away from them, but then I know it's only because I'm gonna spend a lot more in the future, and I wouldn't wanna change it no matter what. I hope to inspire the youth, not only just the youth in our community, but the youth in our barber industry by doing stuff like this. You know, reaching out to the community, setting out that next wave for the next set of barbers, and seeing the growth of, like, you know, these guys here and doing something great for this community. That's what really motivates me. I'm at the point in my career now where I'm very proud of what I've accomplished in my career, but I wouldn't be able to do it without the youth. That really motivates me, and it motivates us to do better. Keep giving back. As far as the barber community, I've done a ton of education in the past too, and I want to continue to do that because let's just say my client can't see me for whatever reason, I'm out of town, then I know I could feel comfortable with them seeing any one of my barbers in here because of the fact that we work together, we learn from each other. We may not do a formal class all the time, but then the fact that we are sitting here next to each other, working with one another, looking at how we cut hair, we feed off that. And we learn from each other and we grow together, and that's what really motivates me to give back to the youth. I love the art of cutting hair. There's nothing I'd rather do. It's just fun. And when something's fun, you just look forward to waking up every day, coming to work, making money, and giving back to the community. As long as these hands are working, then I'm gonna continue cutting, for sure.
Hello, my name is Ashley Franco, and I'm here with Vita Vasquez. Nice to meet you.
Hi, good to meet you, Ashley.
So we're here to interview you about your artwork. Can you explain a little bit more what you do?
I'm a visual artist and jewelry designer, art educator as well.
How much of an impact did your childhood have on your art?
I was fortunate to have parents who really exposed me to a lot of culture. I also was fortunate to be born and raised in the Bay Area here in San Francisco. And so just seeing the murals and the Mission, and my mom took me to art museums. My family is mixed race too. So my father is Afro-Cuban and my mother's Jewish. I had a youth that was culturally stimulating.
Was it difficult to enter the industry as a woman of color?
There is definitely limitations as a woman of color. It's not like an open arm industry for people that look like me. You know, I kind of question if it's because of my identity, but I also feel like I'm creating my own opportunities and connecting with other people who support me.
Have you accomplished all of your dreams and goals so far?
No, but I've accomplished a lot of them. Right now, I'm living what is more than I could have dreamed of. You know, doing art full time, selling my jewelry. It's exciting, and I didn't even quite picture this for myself, but I definitely see more. I want to keep expanding. I'd like to grow a team because it's getting harder for me to do everything by myself. I like to always be growing and expanding.
Why do you think being inclusive is really important in your artwork, as well as being inclusive in the art industry in general?
Because I want to celebrate myself as a woman of color, and while I do that, I'm celebrating the many women of color. And there's so many of us, there's so many just extremely talented, driven, creative women of color. So I just feel like since I have this opportunity to, you know, have a career doing what I love, part of my obligation is to, you know, reproduce these images and this aesthetic women that look like me or that have something in common with me can identify with.
My name is Lul Mengesha, and I'm an entrepreneur. I currently run a small data sciences service company called Datable Services, and I'm also exploring much more of my creative side in writing and filmmaking. I have always been an entrepreneur since I was a little kid. I've always tried to figure out how to make something from nothing. I was born in Sudan. As an immigrant in the US, I think you have to figure out how to navigate in a world that's not necessarily looking for you, and there aren't maybe resources for you. So at an early age, I started figuring out, like, how do I win? And I felt like entrepreneurship was the best way to do that. Helping people is important to me because I grew up in a very communal family and culture. My family is from Ethiopia, and our family is definitely community oriented, and everything is about making sure that your community is doing okay, and then the people in your closest family will do well. It's a very shared culture, and I think growing up in the US, you're more focused on individuality, but I still have my upbringing that forces me to think about community first and service, and you know, everybody in my family's been in service, so I try to do it in my own different way. Like many people, I've had like a lot of different obstacles to getting to where I'm at. For example, at the University of Washington, despite being really interested in writing, I placed into like remedial English courses. I was a great student in high school, but when it came to testing at the college level, I wasn't really prepared for college. So I had to go from not being able to write to then pursuing my own interest in writing. My first book, The Only Black Student, I wrote that more as a response to students I was mentoring in college. There were a group of underclassmen, and I felt that they were struggling on how to navigate. They were smarter than me, but they were not doing as well in navigating. And I think when you're an entrepreneur and you're first gen, you're constantly questioning how to do well in different environments, and you're kind of paving your own way. And I felt that since I had learned how to do that already, it made sense for me to help other students with the same process. I set out to solve this challenge of students of color not doing that well. And I think my life would be a lot different if I was part of white community or majority community, in that it would be a lot easier to navigate. I think a lot of resources in this country are set up to help people that come from families that already have established wealth, or they understand how to navigate systems. But the good thing is, if you are a person of color and you are trying to navigate this country, you end up having a more inclusive experience, and you understand and you're able to empathize more with how different people have to navigate based on the challenges you've had. So I think it makes you a more empathetic person, and I think overall it makes you more successful. For a lot of people, most people aren't willing to go the extra mile to get to this next stage of their goals, but I think that's what entrepreneurship has kind of lent itself to me. It's the ability to keep going.
I grew up in Mumbai. I am the oldest of 2 kids, so I have a little brother. My parents are both architects, and so they actually went to grad school here in Berkeley in California, and that was their first time leaving India. They spent 4 years here and then moved back to India to start their businesses and have us and have their kids. So I grew up really hearing about Berkeley in California as the promised land, where feminism was at its peak. And so grew up really knowing that I wanted to one day come to California, but also grew up in a very mixed religious caste and ethnicity family. So there was food from lots of different cultures all the time. And given that my parents were architects and had specifically moved back to India to be a part of the development of India, it was a very values-driven childhood. You're being given this incredible education, you have a lot of privilege as an Indian, and what are you gonna do with that? And how are you gonna use that to actually contribute to India? So I would say that that has then informed a lot of my life, and now my work is, what am I gonna do for my country? I don't think I knew the first thing about starting a business or necessarily wanted to. It was more seeing that there was a problem, and working in the food industry, the problem was recognizing that the spice trade hadn't changed since the 1800s, and there wasn't anybody willing to actually change that system for the benefit of farmers, for the benefit of consumers, and for the benefit of the earth, most importantly. So starting the business was more realizing that I could create a solution to this problem by selling spices a different way and kind of creating a market for them to be grown differently and marketed differently. So I think just necessity and realizing that nobody else would do it is what really inspired me to start a business. I think about giving up all the time, every day. My partner will often say to me, you can quit now. And the answer is always no, I'm not quitting. I was an athlete before I was a business owner, and I think sports really teaches you to push past your limits and teaches you work ethic, teaches you discipline. A lot of the grit that I have comes from being an athlete, and I wish that every business owner knew what that felt like. I think it would help business at large if everybody came from an athletic background. I think the biggest one that keeps me going is knowing that there's people whose livelihoods now depend on this idea. There's farmers and their families across India now for whom I'm their sole buyer. So if I were to close down, that's a lot of people's lives that are affected. And a lot of people who've taken a risk on me, who invested in me when they really didn't have to. I grew up with turmeric in every part of my day. When you're a kid, you often get scrubbed with turmeric and chickpea flour as an alternative to soap. In a traditional Indian breakfast, you're having turmeric in your breakfast, in your lunch, in your dinner. When you die, your body is cleansed with turmeric. So having grown up in India, my whole life was consumed by turmeric in some form. And when I realized that there was this huge demand for it in America, I really wanted to bring that cultural context and that depth of the history of this spice to the United States, so that yes, people can put turmeric in their turmeric lattes and get their dose of woo-woo wellness, but that they also know where it comes from and who it comes from. I love the history of the spice because it's ultimately the history of where I come from.
A challenge is finding good people that are taking things seriously.
Money, because even though I'm getting money in return, I still need money to make sure the designs are perfect.
My life would be different if I was an entrepreneur by me having to put all my time into it and having to maybe sign paperwork.
If I were an entrepreneur, I think my life would be very organized.
I would be able to obtain money which I could use to support people who aren't in the right places in their life.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I completely changed clothes since the intro and now.
Robert, can I see your face? Okay, great. Everyone to the camera? All right, one clap, 1, 2, 3.